Hi, this is Jessica Paiska. I'm running for District 5 Supervisor, and I've started a weekly series of Zoom interviews called The Power of Community. And this week, I have two local realtors, Shannon and Timothy Toye, and we're going to be talking about how hot the local real estate market is. So Shannon, why don't you start, and maybe both of you can introduce yourself, talk about where you live, where the majority of your listings are, and what company you work for, and maybe how long you've been in real estate.
Sure. So I'm Shannon Williams. I have the Pinnacle Group, which is a real estate team under RE/MAX Gold, and I helped open the RE/MAX Gold office there in Middletown, which I call the gateway to South Lake County, at least. I live just outside of Hidden Valley and been doing real estate for 15 years. We've been in the area for 16 years. So we absolutely love it. We have a ton of family on Cobb, but I do real estate all around the county. I would say majority is probably South Lake County just because of where I live, but I'm all around the lake. I feel like the miles I put on my car daily are, I could be a truck driver with how much driving I do. But yes, all around the lake, but primarily South County is probably, the majority.
Okay, great. And I should mention that Rick White wasn't able to join us. He had an appointment. So that's just indicative of how busy all of you realtors are. So Timothy Toye, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, so, well, you just introduced me. So I have a brokerage called Timothy Toye and Associates, which I think we've been running about 12 or 13 years. I've been doing real estate in Lake County since 1994 and real estate altogether since 1981, which probably gives away my age. So I live on Cobb, and probably like Shannon, most of our business is probably in the South County, but we do the whole county, occasionally outside the county, but generally speaking, Lake County is sort of like where we do.
Excellent. So can you both share how things have changed since the beginning of COVID in March? I know the real estate industry was shut down for a little bit, and then how that opened up, and then how things have changed in the last couple months. And you can start, Timothy.
Okay. So so the shutdown happened, and I think it was the middle of March or towards the end of March, and there were heavy restrictions on showing or how properties could be shown. And that, not just in Lake County, but I think pretty much everywhere in California, made it difficult to show and work with buyers. And so I think probably cut things in about half. I mean, we work nonetheless, but it was just more challenging. And I think they started to open up a couple of months later, so that would be towards the end of May, right? So if you looked at sales in Lake County in June, I think there were 57 homes sold, whereas May in 2019 there were 100, exactly double, 114. So that it was very difficult at the beginning. We adapted, and we're all used to the safety precautions when showing property now, and things are sort of pretty much normal, taking all that into account. And so I know in June the sales were pretty much normal in Lake County. In fact, they were up on last year in terms of closings. So you have openings and closings. The closings usually happen 2 or 3 months after the openings. In terms of, you mentioned anecdotally what's going on, it's very, very busy. I would say that's our experience with our company, but also what I'm hearing from other agents. And I think it's a combination of maybe pent-up demand, things being sort of held back for a couple of months, and then people coming into the country areas from the urban areas because it's simply safer here. And I'll be interested to hear if Shannon says a similar thing. But so it does seem very lively, but you have to wait for the statistics to come, which it'll be interesting to see what July says about the market. I know if you look year to date through to the first half of the year, the average sale price for homes under an acre, they're up about 3.22%, I think is the number. I remember the number. So they're doing better than they were for a couple of years there, but and slightly above inflation. So that's so far this year. So despite the couple of months there of lockdown. The other thing that's probably worth saying about the market is that there is a noticeable demand for larger acreage properties for people who are interested in investing in legal cannabis grows. So we've had the benefit of some of that. Mm-hmm. So there's, like this year, there's been a whole lot more sales over $1 million, for instance, than last year. There was only a mere handful, but there's been several ranches, and I'm interested to see if Shannon agrees with that. So recovery, but it's also already been shown that what I understand is the counties, I know embrace is the right word, but at least their willingness to cooperate with the cannabis industry, the legal cannabis industry, that seems to have having a significant impact. I've heard that Lake County is more cannabis friendly than Mendocino County, which I thought was an interesting comment. Without, you probably know more about the details of that, but that is bringing a lot of money into the county in terms of investment in ranches, and potentially, it could translate into trickle down into more jobs overall, really helping the economy. There's a lot of money headed this way because of that. So I would say, yeah, and the COVID thing we'd have to see. The one thing that I would say I'm cautious about is that at the end of July, I believe the special unemployment generosity that the state's been shown, I don't know if it's the state or the federal or whatever it is exactly, but I do have clients that were in the restaurant industry, and they both got laid off. And I was expressing sympathy, and they says, no worries, we're making more money staying at home than we were working. So they were happy about that. But, that can only last for so long. I believe that, I think there's an attempt to extend it, but otherwise it's going to sunset at the end of July. And is that when we're really going to feel it economically? Because I'm not sure we are yet. At least, at least myself in the real estate industry, those 2 months were difficult, challenging, but we seem to be that seems to have been compensated already.
So there are a lot of factors at play, it seems like. Yeah,
it is, and so it's looking good.
Right.
But I think you have to be careful about predictions. We're the experts. I think both. It's nice to be an expert, but not if you get it wrong. So I would say looking good, but wait and see. Be cautious. We'll see what happens in a couple of months from now.
So, and Shannon, what's your experience been?
Very similar what he's saying. I mean, we went into essentially where we were not allowed to meet clients in person in Lake County at all without a specific health order. It was about the second week of March. And so the only people we were allowed to actually show property to in person were vacant, if the house was vacant, and then we had to apply with the county health department to get a permit to show that the person that we were meeting had an immediate need for housing. And that basically made it almost nobody could get out there. Not that the county wasn't willing to work with us, just it was extra extreme, because then you had to show a dire need that you needed, for a job or some kind of, if your house was selling. So that basically shut it down to almost nothing. And then when they finally did open it mid-April with the masks and sanitizer and everything, and everyone has to sign a form every time you go, it's, you know, there's a lot more hoops to jump through, but it was like all of a sudden the floodgates opened. I don't know if everyone was just sitting home completely bored looking at homes for a month and they were like, I'm ready. But as soon as we were able, it's been nonstop ever since. And I think that's across the board, most agents that I speak with. And so we're seeing a lot of activity. Homes that are priced well are going extremely fast. And yet there's still some properties that could sit there for a while if they're overpriced. So it's not like prices are shooting through the roof and, oh my goodness, it's a seller's market now. Not at all. It's just those that are priced well are moving quickly. And we are seeing multiple offers that we don't normally see in Lake County. Lake County's that's not the norm for here, maybe once in a while, but we're seeing it happen more and more. I'm seeing a ton of out of area agents who are coming in requesting to show properties here, which tells me they're willing to make the drive for the sale, which is always interesting. But certainly, as Timothy hit on, cannabis growers, we have seen an influx of those this year, not just with COVID, but in the last 12 months, I would say, an influx of every large land parcel. In fact, right now in Middletown, there's the Bar X Ranch, oh my goodness, the other one right across from Hidden Valley, and both of those are in escrow, and both of those are, you know, in the millions of dollars, Bar X being 5.5, and that's under contract. So we're seeing an influx of money and the larger land sales certainly happening. At the same time, I'm probably getting 2 to 3 calls a week from people, Sonoma County, Napa County, and especially San Francisco, who are saying, I have been sheltering in place in a condo. My job has transitioned to 100% online. And so it doesn't matter, my commute is no longer, so why not live somewhere where I can have some fresh air? That, or people are saying, I need a second home. I need another option out of the city, out of the suburban areas where I can get my family away to, because we're feeling completely trapped in some of these urban areas.
So that was one of my questions. Who are these buyers? You know, personally, Joel and I have had a software development business for 15 years that we've been working remotely. We don't even know most of our clients. We've never met them. So this is something that we've been doing for a long time. And so I was wondering how many of the buyers are going to be doing working distantly, working remotely, and how many buyers are families maybe looking for a little space for their kids because they don't want to be in those apartments. So kind of where are they coming from, and what kind of buyers are they? And Timothy, maybe you can take that one.
Well, there's always been a lot of buyers out of the Bay Area. I mean, that's sort of a pretty common client. And from time to time, I've had buyers that kind of figure out, like, we can live in Lake County and it's so much cheaper and it's so much more beautiful, and you know, we don't have to go down to the city that much. So yeah, so there's been some acceleration of that. So we've always had people who are looking to retire up here, so these are probably younger people. So yeah, I would say, yeah, I mean, I would echo what Shannon's saying about it, but it's a great place to raise kids. It's a great place if you are getting a little older and you don't need to be downtown partying away. You can live a little bit more peacefully. So I would say, yeah, I would say it's a mixture. It's hard, you know, it's hard to know if your experience is everybody's, but I would say a combination of that. One other thing I just thought of while Shannon was speaking that is having an impact is interest rates.
The interest rates.
They're amazingly low. You know, one of my colleagues is getting a loan below 3%. Like
Yes.
2.75. That's insane. Inflation is about that much.
Right.
And it's fixed for 30 years. So for 30 years, the payment stays the same at this crazy low interest rate. It's
Mhm.
so that's also, I should mention, that's helpful relative to the market.
So is that encouraging people to buy that second home that they've been thinking about? So if you could just, based on your experience and maybe your buyers, what would be the ratio of second home buyers to primary home buyers?
1 in 3. So mostly, I mean, vacation home buyers, yes, depending where you are, of course, but Cobb gets a good amount of those. But I would say, probably not more than 1 in 3.
And
You know,
what do you think, Shannon?
that's totally unscientific. That's just a guess.
Right.
Yeah, I think he's right. Wherever you are, it's kind of a little different because some people want a vacation home on the lake. You might be more apt to want a small cabin on Cobb to vacation in, or maybe you want, on the golf course in Hidden Valley. So it just really depends on the vacationer, I suppose. But in my experience, most recently, I would say about 40% are looking for a second home and about 60% are looking for primary residence. But in the primary residence, I would say probably about half of those are people who already live in Lake County and either rent or are looking to move up, essentially buy a larger home, buy a different home, maybe health needs have changed. So there's a lot of people moving, I think, within the county itself. The other thing I would say on the interest rate is that just increases your buying power. So if before, say, just to give a benchmark, you were pre-approved and maybe you could only afford $300,000 last year with the interest rates at like 4.5%. Now maybe you can, go up to 330, 335. So it's increasing the buying power and giving the buyers a little bit more space to get what they really want. And that's encouraging people to come out. Not to jump back on you, but talking about trends and such. In doing this for 15 years, it's always interesting to me. August is, I don't know if this is Timothy's experience, but August is always, it starts to be a dead month. Springtime is usually our most busy selling season, April, May, and June, I would say. July, all those closings from earlier on kind of hit in July. And then August, in terms of new escrows and people coming up, I think usually back to school, unfortunately, the new normal of fire season, all of that has tended in the last few years to kind of quell things in August a bit. So I'm very curious this year to see how it goes because I feel like we missed that really hot spring season and now it's hitting right now with how busy things are. And I'm wondering if it'll carry us through, the interest rates being low. I also, I feel like that's going to help stabilize the downfall a bit of the economy and people who are losing wages and the uncertainty that a lot of people are feeling. I'm wondering if that will help balance it out so we don't see as much of a downturn. But I also can't help but wonder if toward the end of this year, we won't start to see a little bit of a slide as people's income. Maybe you had savings that's going to last you 4 or 5 months and the incentives and the extra things that the government is giving right now. If that comes to an end, I'm curious how it will play out toward the end of the year.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And what about the sellers? Are they moving out of the area? Are they staying? Are they downsizing? Where do you see those people moving?
I see, well, again, I would say it's a mixture. I would say about 30% are moving out of state. There's a lot of people who are fed up with California. I'm out of here. There seems to be an influx of Californians who are all headed for Idaho. I don't know if that's anyone else's experience. So you have those. I see a lot of people who are, again, they moved up here as first-time home buyers. They wanted to see how they liked it. They've fallen in love with it, and now they want acreage, or maybe they need room for a growing family. And then on the flip side, you have those people who had the large homes, big families, and now they want to downsize and they need a single level and they want to, kind of go the opposite way. So that's, I would say about 60% are staying around here, but about 30 to 40% are headed out.
Yeah, I would say similar. Yeah, you get people leaving for all kinds of reasons, but a fairly common one is California is too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And, no, if it's on your questions there, Jessica, but it might be good to talk about the rental market a little bit.
Oh, sure. That would be great.
Rents are up.
Yes.
Are they?
Yeah. definitely. I don't know, it's sort of like perhaps carrying on from when the Valley Fire hit, that I think the shortage of housing is reflected in rents. They've been going up in the Bay Area, but I also think that, though I heard that the rents were actually a bit soft in the San Francisco area, but I think there's a very strong demand for rentals. So it may also be that we're getting people fleeing the urban areas looking for rentals, not just to buy.
Agreed.
But also what that means, of course, is if you are a landlord, you can actually get a better return on your investment. And you can also get a lower interest rate if you're buying new or refining. I got a 3.37% investment property loan. And when they told me about it, I thought they had got it wrong. I said, "You realize I don't live there." I said, "No,
Yeah.
this is the way." So that was groovy. And so that's another thing to mention. And also the thing about the low interest rates is, in many cases, it means you can buy a house and it doesn't actually cost you more than rent, even on no money down.
Right.
So that's a message I'd like to think was out there for anybody in Lake County is, if you can qualify for a loan, buy a house. It'll save you money. And then and in terms of house prices, we're still only about 80% of where we were at the height of the boom in 2006, which is 14 years ago. Prices are undervalued. They can't go down, in my view anyway, just because of the cost of replacement.
I completely agree. Rent right now, I've had so many people who come up and go, well, I want to start up by renting and see if I like the area. And once you look at rentals and what you're spending and the lack thereof and what you're spending, 9 times out of 10 people just decide to buy because you can get a nicer house for about the same price as what you're paying for rent, if not slightly under. And then on that note too, you had asked about building. It is still cheaper to buy than to build, that's why a lot of people, instead of building new homes, it's just so much cheaper to buy land, not buy land, to just buy something existing and remodel it than it is to buy land and put all the money, especially with all the new construction codes in terms of sprinklers and solar and everything else you have to put in. It's way cheaper to buy than to build.
Which I think might be one of the reasons why people people are heading to Idaho. Cheaper there. Yeah. Houses are cheaper. So there's all kinds of good intentions behind the building codes, fire safety and energy efficiency and all of that, but it all comes with a price. So there's a benefit, but there's a cost. And that consideration needs to be both when you're doing that consideration.
So, and for those of you that didn't get the list of questions, I had asked them if people were coming to the area with the intent of buying an existing home or buying property to build a home. And as Shannon and Timothy both pointed out, and my experience too as well from rebuilding from the Valley Fire, it is extremely expensive to build a home, and you may not be able to sell it for what it costs you to build it.
Right, exactly.
Right. And that's that can't last too long, because the population is going up, and last time I checked, I think there are people leaving for other states. There's plenty coming in to make up for those, but there's not enough homes, period, and they're not building. The state is not building anywhere near enough homes, so it can be only so long. I think the thing is, one thing to say about Lake County in terms of the local economy is we don't really have much of a new construction industry, which is, I'm sure that has impacts. So if second-hand home prices went up as little as another 10%, maybe 15%, that sort of equation you're mentioning, Shannon, might change. It might just get to the point where, I'm going to build. I mean, right now it's weighted, so people are tending to buy secondhand and remodel, or even buy already remodeled rather than build new. But it's not that far off that if we had a lively market for a year or two and we saw price increases of like another 10%, I think you might start to see that there was a lot of new building. A lot of builders will come out of the woodwork or whatever they do, stop remodeling, stop working out of the county and invest locally. I think that would have a major impact locally, and of course it would increase the demand for lots and land, and increase those prices, because one of the reasons you're getting cannabis investors in large parcels is they're ridiculously cheap. I'm selling 120 acres for 800,000. You move that across the mountain into Sonoma County, and the price is just, I don't know, triple, quadruple the price. So land is ridiculously cheap, and that's largely because there's not a whole lot of demand for new construction.
And that really has been one of my focuses over the past 5 years since the Valley Fire, is how do we get more homes built? And it has been difficult because the building codes have made it more expensive every couple of years. And Shannon, you have had a construction business with your husband, and you can really speak to that. And so, Timothy, you're saying it's 10% more or so once we see prices go up, or what?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm making a guess there. If construction costs are 250 a square foot, which is probably in the range, I rebuilt 3 homes after the Valley Fire. That's about what it cost. I think if you look at, I saw a brand new spec home on the market in Hidden Valley the other day, and I think it was 225 a square foot. So it's a big home. So I think that builder I imagine his pricing is really tight.
Right.
And so if he could get 250 a square foot, then I expect the one he's got on the market would sell quickly, and he'd be into another one right away. So, but yeah, I think if you look at there aren't that many new homes, but you look at homes that are like fully remodeled, they're probably selling, the average square foot might be somewhere just under 200. Whereas historically, they talk about the discount for a secondhand versus new home is like 15%. So you sort of run those numbers, 250 minus 15% is somewhere around 215, 210. But the average sale price is still below that, not by a whole lot, but enough that it's not encouraging to people to build new.
Did you want to add something to about that, Shannon, with the building?
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of Hidden Valley right now, the average price per square foot for all the Hidden Valley homes, from your largest to your smallest, but not including the ranchos, so not on acreage, just a standard home in the neighborhood, is about 176 per square foot right now. So when you compare that with a new build with 250 being for and I would say a 250 per square foot build is for your most basic home. That's not for any upgrades, and that doesn't include the cost of the land. So if you're trying to build on land, that's not including that cost. So, and with the new solar that's now in place, I think that number will have gone up significantly this year. So I think it's enough of a marked difference that unless you have an intention to buy or to build a very specific house on a specific lot and it's worth it to you, I think in terms of investment builders, it's more of a numbers game of they have to do enough. It's a volume issue less than pricing. If they're cranking them out, steadily, then it's worth it. But if not, just doing, one here and there, most people are getting away from that.
So what about the issue of fire insurance, which I know most people in Lake County are dealing with? How are people able to get it before they close, or are they having to walk away from homes that they've chosen because they're not able to get insurance? What are you seeing with that?
I think, again, it's so dependent upon the area. I had a beautiful listing out on the Buckingham Peninsula, a ways out there, a gorgeous home for, almost $600,000. And the cheapest insurance we could find for a new buyer through the California Fair Plan was about $7,500, and that is the California Fair Plan. So that's the structure only, not including any content. So once you added in everything else with another plan, it was about $9,500. So yes, we lost a number of buyers for that reason. Eventually we found someone who came along and fell in love with the house enough that to them it was worth it. That being said, that's not always common. So I know that there's areas out, Riviera West is extremely high right now. In Buckingham, I'm seeing very high insurance. Certain parts of Cobb, certainly. Some of the areas even in the ranchos, depending on where you are at. And it also very much depends, and I would encourage people, if you're hearing no from one insurance company, don't shut it down though, because there are different agents that I know within the same kind of overarching company. And it's amazing to me how one can get insurance and one can't. And I'm not sure how that all works, but for the most part, deals are going through and people are finding it, but most certainly it is affecting specific locations.
Yeah, I'd say I'd never lost a sale because of insurance until this year. So it's part of the equation, of course. If insurance is going to be the insurance is going to be $7,500, and that's going to have a major impact on the housing cost. So yeah, I think probably Riviera Heights and Buckingham are probably the worst hit. But even on Cobb, there's some areas that are particularly bad because they have these maps, these ways of figuring out which area is particularly bad. So yeah, like Shannon said, shop around because it's a little bit all over the place, and you definitely want to line your insurance up at the beginning of the escrow, not leave it to the end and get unpleasant surprised. But yeah, but some of it's definitely standing in the way of some sales, at least in those couple of areas, but also others. So definitely something you need to work on. Like, here's an example. In Riviera Heights, I have a house for sale that is, the current insurance is $2,500 through the CSAA. It's a veterans insurance company. But if you're not a veteran, it's going to be $7,500. So that doesn't quite make sense. I mean, because you're a veteran, is that why your insurance is that much lower? I presume CSAA is still making a profit out of their insurance. So somehow or other, there's a gap there that's not being filled by providers. And so hopefully that changes soon. So I'm hopeful it will, because that's a huge amount to have to be forking out.
So I want to just get to my last two questions kind of briefly. What areas of the county do you see a lack of broadband coverage? And how do you work with a buyer who is, say, planning to work remotely and make sure that there's adequate broadband before the sale goes through?
I saw that question and I thought that was kind of brilliant, because that is an issue that most people don't think about, and especially those who come from the city and then they're like, wait, what? There's no high speed? And so again, it's literally almost neighborhood by neighborhood. So we lived in Hidden Valley for years, just built right outside of Hidden Valley. And where we built, there was it took like a month or two on a waiting list with AT&T to get AT&T fixed wireless for high-speed internet from my house. In the meantime, I had to hotspot when I would work from home. So it's one of those things I would have never expected it for myself right here where we're at, because it's like, well, Hidden Valley's like a stone's throw away. Obviously, areas of Cobb, Middletown, depending on how far out you go, Twin Lakes, certainly, if you're out that way, or going out Spruce Grove Road. So it's across South County, really, unless you are in a spot that there's a lot of houses, you're gonna be up against a lack of super high-speed internet. And again, there's ways around it. Boosters that you can get, going through Verizon, I have found, has been an interesting way for people to work around. You can get the hotspots that are portable with a booster, and you can kind of make do that way. But it's certainly something that has come up for a number of my buyers who come from the Bay Area and need very high internet speeds. And the reality is, if in the fall we continue to have kids working from home and doing online schooling, if you have 2, 3, 4 computers at a time all using up the internet, that's going to be a struggle. Not using up the internet, but you know what I mean.
I do. Your broadband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find the same thing, especially with acreage properties. But even on Cobb, there's an area which has underground utilities, which is wonderful. But what it does mean is that there's nowhere for the cable to be slung onto. So I ran into, so occasionally run into that. Is that if you're working from home, there's satellite, but you have to be kind of patient with satellite. So that's something that is definitely to be looked at, because, especially after the pandemic, everything's on streaming. It's not like we need more and more speed, more and more capacity with internet. That is not going to change.
So I really appreciate both of you coming on. I did want to ask one more question about encouraging investors to come to the area. And we did touch on that with canvas investors and other people that are buying large properties. But what about the commercial properties? And Shannon, you have Black Rock Golf Course on Cobb listed. And where is the interest in that? And really what I'm thinking about are people that are in more urban areas that are really rethinking their lifestyle and maybe want to buy a turnkey business, or or just try something new with their lives. And are you seeing those types of buyers or getting that kind of interest?
I would say we're just starting to get that kind of interest. I think a lot of investors right now that are coming from the Bay Area took a big hit with all the kind of unknowns that we've had the last couple of months. So I'm seeing a lot of investors are almost kind of hunkering down just a tad and want to see what's happening with the economy before they jump into something. That being said, yes, in fact, it's interesting. In the last few weeks, I've had a number of calls. So again, it's funny. It's kind of like what I was talking about, like with the, it was like dead. And then all of a sudden, like an awakening of people going, okay, now's the time. So we are seeing an influx in that. I think you and I, before we kind of got started, we're talking a little bit about the big development going out in Gwinnett Valley that's proposed, which is this gorgeous, huge resort that's going to be tucked back in the hills there. And the way it's going to be done and the level of elegance, I guess I would say, that they're going to be doing everything to such a high standard, I think it's going to bring more of an interest in the area of investors who go, whoa, this is here. What else is around here? And how can I also kind of get in on this? Also, I sold the, what was the old glider port right between Hidden Valley and Middletown. And the people who bought that, they are developing, it's a super high-end golf course, kind of a cult following, the very old school, old-fashioned golf, what's fanatics, I guess you can say, where there's no carts and it's all natural fairways and they only develop the greens, and people who, I equate it kind of in the wine industry to those people who want the bottle of Screaming Eagle as opposed to $2 Chuck. So they're willing to, and some of their other golf courses are in very rural areas in Nebraska. Across the world, they have one in Morocco. So, and they're developing this golf course right here between Hidden Valley and Middletown where people get to fly in and have this really unique experience. And so I see a lot of those little things where people are realizing the gem that Lake County is, and how authentic I think Lake County is. You know, the people are actually friendly and everyone actually looks out for one another, and it's not very commercial, and it's not about shopping and retail and things like that. It's about just community. And so I see a lot of investors recognizing that and starting to pay more attention to our area for that as well.
Yeah, I'd say that's an area of tremendous growth. I mean, you're giving some examples there, Shannon, which of new tourist opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
But we're sort of in, you know, Lake County was a big tourist area going back to the 1870s, and but that hasn't altogether been replaced. So it's still kind of obsolete. A lot of the tourist facilities up here, the old cabins on the lake kind of stuff. So it's really good to see things like you're mentioning, Shannon. If we can see more of that, there's a lot of new wineries that have been opening, little boutique wineries. So that's obviously an area of growth, but if you could actually see that there's more and more and more of that, then Lake County would be you know, probably very different economically. So you know, I'm sure you're focusing on that, Jessica, but really not enough of it. Some, but we need more of it. Bring it on.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I know you're really busy, and I really look forward to seeing some numbers on how this summer progresses for you, and look at how many listings and openings and closings you get. And I think in the next 6 months, we're going to see all kinds of interesting things, and it's important for us to pay attention to what's happening and who's coming here, and how can we prepare and, you know, get the broadband lined up and work with the schools and make sure that all these new people coming can get to the schools and also do distance learning at home if they need to. So there's a lot of challenges ahead of us, but there's also a lot of opportunities. So I really appreciate you both coming here and sharing your experiences. So thanks everybody for tuning in. This was my second edition of Power of Community. If you have any ideas for what you'd like to see on this show, give me a call. My phone number is 707-278-4007, or you can give me an email at Jessica Paiska for Supervisor D5 at Gmail, and check out my website and my Facebook page. So thank you so much. Next week, we're going to be talking with Jason Chavez from Kelsey Creek Brewing Company and the Saw Shop. So we're going to be talking more about food and dining and all the creative pivots that they've been making over the last couple of months. So have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks,
Thank
Shannon.
you.